The night the moon, stone vanished. The moonstone blazed with an ethereal blue radiance, casting dancing shadows across the atrium of Melodonus's grand tree home. The stone pulsed gently to the rhythm of ancient magic, its light reflecting in the eyes of the gathered trolls who had come to celebrate the summer solstice. The air shimmered with possibility, thick with the scent of night-blooming flowers and enchanted wine. Melodonus glided through the crowd, his leafy garments rustling softly as he moved. His fingers traced delicate patterns in the air, strengthening the magical lights that floated like captured stars among the carved branches overhead. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Elder?" he asked Winston, bowing deeply with practiced grace. Winston's weathered face crinkled with appreciation as he sipped from a crystal goblet. "A splendid affair, as always. Though I must admit, displaying the moonstone so openly makes me rather anxious." "The solstice is when its power should be celebrated," Melodonus replied, his voice melodic and assured. "And Thorn is watching it like a hawk. See?" He gestured toward the stoic guard positioned near the pedestal, whose vigilant eyes scanned the room constantly. Across the atrium, Dot worked his station with practiced efficiency, his silver hair catching the light as he mixed colorful concoctions that steamed, sparkled, and occasionally sang. His wrinkled face creased with pleasure each time a guest expressed delight at his creations. "A little something special for the solstice," he explained to Avast, who had approached his table with measured steps. Her elaborate horns adorned with golden markings caught the light as she tilted her head. "How thoughtful," she replied, her hypnotic purple eyes drifting toward the moonstone. "Though I find myself wondering why such a precious artifact would be so accessible tonight." Dot's large ears twitched slightly. "Tradition and trust, I suppose. Though between you and me," he leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I'd have kept it locked away. Old habits from my guardsman days." Bruno's massive frame appeared behind Avast, his red eyes gleaming with interest. "Speaking of treasures," he rumbled, "that stone has quite a fascinating history. Did you know it was discovered during the third migration? I have several collectors who would trade their entire hoards just to study it for an hour." Thimble approached, her steps purposeful, hand never far from where her weapon would normally rest. "Then it's fortunate you're merely here to appreciate it from a distance, Bruno." Her voice carried a warning edge that made nearby conversations falter momentarily. Bruno laughed, the sound deep and confident. "My dear Thimble, always so suspicious. I'm merely an admirer of beautiful things. Speaking of which, Dot, might I trouble you for one of those shimmering blue drinks?" As Dot busied himself with the request, Thimble's posture remained rigid. She exchanged a look with Avast that lingered just a moment too long. "Quite a gathering Melodonus has arranged," Thimble remarked, her eyes constantly scanning the room. "Though I question the wisdom of having so many interested parties near the stone at once." Avast's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "We're all loyal subjects of Trollstone, are we not? Surely there's no cause for concern among friends." The crystalline chimes of midnight began to echo through the space, and Melodonus moved to the center of the room, raising his arms. The musicians fell silent, and the crowd turned expectantly toward their host. "Honored guests," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly, "as the solstice moon reaches its zenith, I invite you to join me in the ancient blessing of—" His words cut off as the moonstone pulsed brightly, once, twice, 3 times, a flare of radiance that left dazzling after-images in everyone's vision. Then darkness. Complete, absolute darkness. The sudden absence of light brought gasps and murmurs of confusion. The darkness was unusually thick, as if it had substance, a weight that pressed against the skin. The scent of ozone and winter frost inexplicably filled the warm summer air. A crystalline chime, delicate yet clear, rang out from the direction of the pedestal. "Everyone remain calm," Thorn's authoritative voice cut through the chaos. 30 seconds of darkness felt like an eternity. Whispers, the rustle of clothing, and the soft sound of footsteps created a disorienting tapestry of sound. Then, as suddenly as they had extinguished, the magical lights blazed back to life. Meladonis blinked, momentarily disoriented. As his vision cleared, his gaze immediately went to the pedestal. The moonstone was gone. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as awareness spread. Where the sacred artifact had rested now lay only empty space, with a faint shimmer of magical residue dancing above the pedestal like heat rising from sun-baked stone. "Seal the exits," Thorn commanded, his voice cutting through the growing commotion. Thimble was already moving, her expression thunderous. "No one leaves until we determine what happened." Bruno's face registered shock, perhaps too perfectly composed. How could this happen with so many witnesses? Dot quietly set down the blue drink he'd been preparing, his normally cheerful demeanor replaced by a grave expression. "The question isn't how," he murmured, "but who." Avast stood perfectly still, her purple eyes narrowed as she surveyed the room. "Indeed," she agreed, her voice silky. "And I suspect the answer is standing among us right now." Meladonis approached the pedestal slowly, his fingers trembling slightly as they passed through the space where the moonstone had been. "Without the stone," he said, his musical voice now hollow with dread, "the barriers protecting Trollstone will begin to weaken. We have 3 days, perhaps 4, before humans may stumble upon us." Winston's aged hand clutched his staff tighter. "Then we have precisely that long to recover it." As accusations began to fly and Thorn organized search parties, 4 particular guests observed one another with careful, calculating expressions. Each noticed something the others missed. Each harbored their own suspicions. And somewhere, hidden from view, the moonstone continued to pulse with its cold blue light, 3 times in sequence, like a heartbeat waiting to be found.